Educating students in rural settings is an important part of public education in America. More than half of all school districts and a third of all public schools are in rural areas. According to the National Center for Education Statistics, over 12 million students attend a rural public elementary or secondary school, accounting for 25% of all public school students. Unrecognized by most Americans and often overshadowed by the nation's attention to dropout challenges in urban settings, more than one-fifth of public schools in rural America have higher than average dropout rates. Because of their remote locations and more limited resources, schools in rural communities often have less access to high-quality technical assistance than schools in other communities. For this reason, the U.S. Department of Education's High School Graduation Initiative program provided dropout prevention support and technical assistance to grantees and districts across the country. This video highlights dropout prevention efforts in rural districts and schools in Montana. Montana is using a broad-based but locally identified approach to high school dropout prevention. Through its initiative, Graduation Matters Montana, the state established a sophisticated early warning system that enables it to identify and engage students at risk of dropping out of school. Supporting students to be active and productive citizens, it established foundation and business relationships, a student advisory board, and an annual summit to share and develop successful graduation strategies. Graduation Matters local initiatives include positive youth-adult relationships, student mentorship programs, student voice, and programs supporting personalized learning and multi-tiered level interventions.
Intuitively, we know that students are more willing and able to learn when they feel empowered in shaping the academic and social environment of the school.
I can see it when I walk into a school. When they are a Graduation Matters school, it reflects. It shows up in their hallways, it shows up in their classrooms. Students are talking about the importance of graduating. We can ask people what's going on with Graduation Matters, and everybody feels engaged.
Just by developing the programs at the local level and generating that excitement, the interest in focusing on improving graduation rates has an immediate impact.
When I first became superintendent of public instruction, stepped into office, and our education system's actually performing very well, but there was one challenge that we were facing. It was too many students were dropping out of school. There were over 2,000 students dropping out of school back in 2008. Start looking around the state about ways that we might be able to address that and bring that to the forefront as a challenge that our public education system could face, and saw some promising practices, and created what's called Graduation Matters Montana, and just started working community by community around graduation issues and increasing graduation rates and decreasing the dropout rate. It's all about programs and knowledge and information, and I think the early warning system provides information, but identification and then interventions and serving are all different things that sort of need to run the continuum, and I think it's we're good at identifying now, and now we need to make sure that everybody has the tools, the interventions, so that student can be successful. At the state level, we know it's working because we look at data, and we see that the graduation rate has increased by 5% since 2010. That's huge. The dropout rate has decreased, and we've cut that number by a third, which I think is huge for our state as well. That means that about 773 students more have graduated over that length of time, and just think of the type of impact they have on the economy of this state just by having that high school diploma. It's because of all of you that Montana's graduation rate has increased by more than 5 percentage points in just the last 5 years. We talk about the data, we'd be truthful about where their dropouts were happening, and then just sort of engage schools and communities in this effort. And it was just really a powerful model for people to create a locally designed plan, locally implement it, and then based on things that work in Montana. And we now have 53 communities engaged in Graduation Matters. 75% of the students who are attending a school in our state are attending a school where there's a Graduation Matters initiative going on. And everything that we do now at the State Education Agency falls under the umbrella of Graduation Matters.
You know, as we work our way through the summit and today and from listening in here and there, that this work is not done. We've made a lot of progress though. I mean, we have a lot to celebrate. We have a lot of successes we can point to, but the work's not done. But it does keep growing. We can look at this year's summit and see we've had record attendance. There are 40 communities that came into this room to talk about Graduation Matters and talk about helping students succeed. There are 53 communities across this state working on Graduation Matters and supporting students to graduation. More and more students become involved and talk about the importance of having student voice and a say in how they become educated and what that diploma means. And I think that was another big moment, as it keeps growing. The work's not done. We all recognize that, but we also have a lot of successes. And the connections that we are all making here at this summit, and those relationships that will continue once all of you get back home, is truly the key to meeting our collective goal. There are still things that we can do together to make a positive difference. And as we continue these conversations, and you continue conversations at the local level, I know those types of aha moments continue to happen.
All of these efforts, because we're in a public education system, require the public to be involved, and that community should be involved, and that schools can actually identify and come up with their own solutions.
Some students came one morning, this was just this past year. They came one morning with a problem they were having, and we talked for a while, and then we made an appointment to talk again because we didn't get it resolved. And at that point, I said, what if we had a group that attempted to meet regularly? And they said, we think that's a good idea. And so we put something on the announcements. We'll have a student advisory council meeting. One of the things we talked about in those meetings, they were lunchtime meetings, and they started just to come together as a group. We always ask the question, who isn't in the room? Who should be here? How are we, is this representative of the student body, or who might need to be in here? And they'd look around and say which sorts of kids, the disenfranchised kids usually weren't in the room, and we talked about how to get them in the room, and they did. And then we could have some really rich discussions. We set a few ground rules, but as time went on and they got to know each other, even though kids came in and out of the discussion, there was a core group and a group that had to do with respect, and a group that knew that their principal was listening. Teachers wandered in and out of the group also. It's always been very open, and that ended up being productive in a way I would not have expected.
Ms. Galley was really into the idea of having a student-based group, really, and just having someone she can talk to. I kind of really started that, which was really fun because we had sophomores, freshmen, juniors, and seniors all just hanging out at lunch every other week with Ms. Gallia, and sometimes other teachers came in and we just got to talk about the dress code and things that we wanted to change there, or a student-led drug enforcement policy and how we could start bring drug testing into the schools, and just like the redesign and how we can redo the whole student handbook, really. And it was just really nice to see a whole bunch of students get together, it's like from the kids who just got here to the kids who are graduating, and then see how our ideas are changing and are like what we kind of want the school to see happen, that like the freshmen haven't seen, and how we've seen what the seniors want the freshmen to be able to experience. And it was nice to have her be there and see what we want, and then have her take it back to the other teachers, the administrators, and see if they can kind of work that in.
I know what impacts students because I have a student advisory board, and we talk a lot about the importance of graduating. And the student advisory board is not made up of just the valedictorians of the class, although they are present, but also students who dropped out of school and dropped back in. and they bring to that conversation the issues of wanting relevance in their classroom, the importance of a caring adult to support them in their effort.
I heard about it through a friend, and she was telling me how great it was, and she was our old representative before she graduated, and she just said it was the most fun thing she's ever done, and I really wanted to be a part of it. And so when I was applying for it, I thought about how in Montana we don't have a lot of diversity, which is, I mean, it's just a fact and it's fine. And I kind of wanted to be that spokesperson, not only for my school, but for other people of color that live in Montana, and just kind of show them that we do have a voice in this state and we can get change done if we really want to. And I just wanted to help out the students in my school, but also the students of our state and of other races.
My folks were kind of more encouraging to go out and do more, be more involved. And so around my sophomore year, or it was my freshman year, Ms. Sunheim talked me into filling out this application for a student advisory board. I used to be like a shut-in, kind of, and kept to myself. But my sophomore year, I just kind of turned over a new leaf and kind of started to encourage others and just kind of have like a more positive attitude and a more positive outlook on life. And I think that is part of why Hardin has gotten to the point it's at, is because it's like, by the time I became a senior, there was people looking up to me already, and so I kind of changed the precedent a little bit for seniors to be kind of mean and stuff, and more of supportive and guides.
Intuitively, we know that students are more willing and able to learn when they feel empowered in shaping the academic and social environment of the school. Hardin's integration of student voice into school culture and their corresponding 11.5% graduation rate increase in the last 3 years support this notion and serve as a reminder to all of us that students do better when their voice is heard.
The early warning system at the state level, working directly with school systems as well, of taking data that we might not have as either and putting it sort of in a sandbox for that school district so that they can identify student by student and see on a daily basis, is that student showing up to school, what the discipline referrals look like, and it's called early warning because there's a formula that can go with it that identifies students that can be called on early, that they can start putting interventions into place at an early level so they don't reach that critical stage of, well, I'm leaving school or I need to have some sort of remediation, that they can catch that student early. And so those schools that are doing early warning system, and I think this is going to become a bigger thing in our state as well, because we've just seen schools really say this is exactly what we've needed. We've needed to be able to identify students early. We've needed to apply those interventions. We have some schools under Graduation Matters, when they see students starting to go down the wrong track, they have what's called Graduation Matters coaches, and they'll each have 5 to 10 students, and they'll call that student up and say, you need to get here today. We care that you're here, please show up. And so it all flows together, but I think the early warning system, I think, is having great benefits for schools. They see that, and I see that growing in the future in our state.
Specifically with the graduation rates and the dropout rates, I'm working on trying to develop an early warning system that will identify students before they drop out, and as early as possible. Every school year, I have looked at those results at the beginning of the year and then tracked them through the year and see if the dropouts are being identified throughout the school year. And they have been, for the most part. I mean, obviously, there's mistakes made. You're predicting the future. So far, right now, it looks like throughout any one school year, the model at the beginning of the year will identify about 80% of the dropouts. That's only the results at the beginning of the year. The way the model's set up, it uses live data, and you can actually track the student throughout the whole school year. So the accuracy improves when you're tracking them through the school year, because you have those students that start off well and then don't do as well later on. And the model eventually picks that up. The early warning system is currently fully running for any school across the state that wants to use it. That is as of about a month ago. And it's working on our GEMS data warehouse. It's a website that these schools can go to. There's lots of data there, including graduation rates, dropout rates, test scores, everything. The early warning system is part of that website. Only difference with the early warning system on that website is it's student level data versus a lot of the other stuff there is not. So there's two versions to the website, a public version and a secure version. And the early warning system has to be on the secure version because it's student level data.
We've increased the My Voice areas of concern in the areas we set out to improve in 16 out of the 20 areas. Only 4% of our students failed courses. We had a 95% attendance rate. 84% of our students didn't have a referral all year. 50% of our students made the honor roll. 2 years ago, we had 7 dropouts. Year before, 6, and this year, 3. I've been an administrator for 14 years, and I've tracked dropout for 14 years. I've seen where we've had as many as 10, 12 a year when I first started. I've seen as few as 2 and 3, I'd say 5, 6 years ago, where we were probably doing our best work. And I think that had a lot to do with a teacher that we had that refused to give up on kids. And she kept a lot of students in school, Joyce Easter. She's passed, but she was a big part of those years. After she left, I saw an increase. 2 years ago, we had 7 dropouts. Year before this last year, we had 6. This year, we had 3. So, you know, it's still not right until there's 0. But we're seeing some gains now. We're gaining some momentum again in dropout prevention. You know, what that ticket is, I couldn't tell you exactly what it is, but I can tell you there's a whole lot of things that contribute to keeping students in school. It's not entirely the school either. It's, you know, where they come from, families gaining some support there. Working with our milepost program, we're doing a lot of at-risk identification, parent meetings, working with the students and the parents and some of the tribal education folks. We're working on some programs right now. We just wrote a grant trying to get some money to help with a program that will involve a partnership with not only the tribe, administration, student, and parent, trying to bring those 4 together. That's kind of a new idea that we've just kind of recently been working on. But
shared leadership works to change the system.
What gets measured gets done. Track your data, encourage students, tell them that you wouldn't trade them for any other students anywhere.
People and relationships carry the freight. Involving student and teacher teams can change the system.
Milepost program is from Silverback Learning. It does all of our progress monitors and our interventions for our students. So we have interventions that we do we identify who our at-risk students are through the teachers and through data that we study. We identify those students, then we set up intervention plans for those students, and then we have one teacher responsible for every at-risk student, so they oversee their academics, their discipline. The Milepost program houses the intervention plan, the RTI plan. It also houses all their discipline data. And then we have teachers, instead of trying to monitor 20 students that may be at risk, having them take ownership of 1. And through that, with the administration, then we can meet with parents and build those cooperations, that cooperative effort better with Milepost. And it's what we use to house those intervention plans.
We take pledges for the kids. First, starting out with the young kids in the elementary school. Sometimes they don't quite know what they're doing. Graduation is so far off. So then, regroup. At 8th grade graduation, recommit to the pledge to graduate. The new students also within the school district recommit when they enter into our school district. The cool thing that happened this year was this year's seniors at the graduation rehearsal breakfast, they got their pledge cards back. where they pledge to graduate. And here they are the day before graduation, and they see that they've made that pledge come true. And even the little snippets of, why do you want to graduate? I want to be a millionaire, or I want to own my own business. Those goals are still within reach.
We know Graduation Matters is having an impact because we have 53 communities engaged. They are working with their small businesses in their communities. They're working with their nonprofit organizations. Everybody feels a stake in making sure that students are successful in those schools and communities. I can see it when I walk into a school. When they are a Graduation Matters school, it reflects. It shows up on in their hallways. It shows up in their classrooms. Students are talking about the importance of graduating. We can ask people what's going on with Graduation Matters, and everybody feels engaged.
Just the kids say that the school is very accepting. They think the student body and the teachers are very accepting, that it's a challenging academic school, but they also feel supported as well as challenged. You need both of those things. And that there's a lot of opportunities for success and for support and for assistance, after school tutoring, summer school, things like that.
A lot of the teachers are graduates of Hardin and their alumni, and they grew up in the area, and they're just so into helping their community and helping the students that are on the same track that they were 10, 20, 50 years ago. And the ones that aren't from Hardin are just so fascinated by the rich culture that we have. They're just wanting to help us students in any way they possibly can, and I think that's great.
GMM is a perfect fit for the giving we are able to do. The alignment between GMM and SAF has created a wonderful partnership that we value tremendously. The funds we give go directly to local GMM efforts to focus on timely FAFSA completion, with a target of 35% FAFSA completion by March 1st.
We need an educated citizenry, and the basis of that is a graduation diploma from a high school. It allows them to, that's the launching pad for the rest of their lives, and I want to make sure that students across this state have the opportunities I had as a result of having a high school diploma. And in our global economy now, and the way that jobs work, and the way that careers work, and the way that our country is moving, it's imperative that we provide every opportunity for students to have a high school diploma so that they can be successful in the future, and I just want that for every child in our state. The commodities, agricultural products, lumber, and energy commodities that are produced in Montana. And as a large employer, we're always looking at recruiting from the communities that we're serving in Montana. And in 2014, we were looking to fill more than 500 positions in Montana, many of them in eastern Montana that has been significantly impacted by energy development in that part of the state. And we have learned through many years of practice that our ability to retain employees in rural communities is significantly increased if we can recruit people who grew up in those communities. And in order to do that, it's important that that the schools are graduating the kids that are growing up there. And so with the attraction of jobs in the energy industry and in the growth through the energy development, it was a real challenge for us to fill those positions locally, and we started to think a little farther into the long term. How are we going to improve our ability in the future? And it's certainly by working with the schools and the career development opportunities in those communities. And that's really where we learned about Graduation Matters Montana was doing. And they're working directly with the schools in these communities to develop individualized programs to increase the graduation rates in those communities, which, from our perspective, leads to more future potential employees. And that's where we really learned about them and how we got interested.
The Big Brothers Big Sisters program especially, they have to be identified from kindergarten through 8th grade, either by a parent or a teacher, staff member, and then they get placed into the program and are put with a mentor. We've had that long enough now that so many of those kids, when they get to high school, want to be a big, because they knew the impact it had on them as a little. So we do see that carry over, and a lot of times those aren't our, I mean, they can be both, but they're not our top students. They're kids that struggled in school when they were, but they want to help somebody else like them that was maybe struggling. So we've seen that as such a positive. They have to turn kids away. The counselors are to cap that at 100 mentors, just because it's to manage the program and to keep it, but every year they have to turn kids away. So many kids want to be involved in that program. Even if they didn't have a big, as they remember seeing those kids come into their classrooms, and they remember seeing them interact with a kid that it made a difference. And the kids, they do, those little kids especially, they jump up out of their seat when their big comes to the door. The smile on their face, and then, you know, it carries over. They see him out in the community, and you would not believe, I mean, they see him in the grocery store, and they run up and hug him, and they run up and high five him, and I think they all, it's, you know, we all like to feel good, and I think those high school kids like the feeling they get when a younger kid encourages them as well.
It doesn't matter what programs you have in place or what professional development you get. If you don't have the people with the passion for the program, it's going to go belly up. So to me, it's the people that are involved. It's not a program that you buy into or a book you read. It's the passion and having the student success as the #1 priority in your school, and having that thought at the forefront of your mind when you make decisions about curriculum, about policy, about school environment. You know, if you keep that #1, everything's going to go in the right direction.